Christianity.
Because I do believe that it is amazing proof we're not alone in the universe. UFO, in the form of a bright light, is descending over the dome of the rock of Jerusalem.
All right. Welcome to Goof On, everybody. I'm Rich Giordano. It is Friday, December 10th, 2021. You did it. You made it through the whole work week, and it is now the weekend. To my 9-to-5ers, people who work when the sun is up, proud of you. And tomorrow we've got the weekend show, Saturday for the UK, a little earlier for our friends over in the United Kingdom. So that'll be fun this weekend. And there probably will. We're going to try to get it to work. I found a way to do a live show for the patrons on Sunday. If you want, there'll be 30 of us. It'll be quaint. It'll be quick. It'll be painless like everything else we do here. And tonight, we're going to have a good time. I have Michael Schratt waiting to come on the show. And I've been waiting for a while to talk to him on Goof On. You never know when things are going to come around and the opportunity arises, and we take it when we can. And Michael was nice enough to say yes to come on Goof On. So I don't want to wait anymore. So I'm going to bring him on right now without further ado, as Michael Roser likes to say from Dark Hour Paranormal. Here is Michael Schratt. Michael, welcome to Goof On.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I can't believe you're here. It's like, it's surreal, but I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
And, I was just saying to the crowd here, we usually do like a hello to everybody, but we're not doing that tonight. People are asking for roll call. But I like to give all the time to you because I know you are a UFO aviation historian. We were talking about this before the show. Mm-hmm. And, I said how long you've been doing it, and pretty much your whole life, and your answer was, I guess so, yeah. So
yeah.
What was it as a child you were, we're just diving into it. We're not even going to so was it as a child something caught your eye, got your interest?
Well, there used to be a museum called Victory Air Museum in Mundelein, Illinois. It's like a suburb of Chicago. My dad used to take me there when I was 6 years old. And they had all these warbirds out there, but they were in the grass. They were dilapidated. They were derelict. They had cracked windshields and opaque windows, and they had chip paint and rust in the wheel wells, and it had this ghostly appeal to it. That's where it really started for me. That's where it really got going, my interest in aviation. And then living in Chicago gave me the opportunity to go to EAA Air Show, Oshkosh, for like 27 years in a row. And I guess that's just where it all started.
That's interesting. You say 6 years old. I can't tell you how many people I've met in this field that said, when I was around 6 or 7, including myself, we saw something. It's amazing how that starts at such a young age. But you did say you were from Chicago, and Chicago had that O'Hare incident. When was that? Like 2005 or 6?
2006, I think, yeah.
Do you know much about that too? I mean, I would imagine you do, because I've never seen, I don't know if I've seen real video of it. Is there real video?
Well, I know about that case, and I know that there was a hole punch cloud over the terminal there, but I've got another case at O'Hare that's even better than that one, I think. So
no way.
About that. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to hear about that while we're here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. We can do that later on too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Being a historian, I know, I guess I know a little bit about you because of Third Phase, and
sure.
We are on the panel for Third Phase of Moon one way or another.
Correct.
We kind of see each other here and there on the screen and whatnot, but man, I was going to ask you something. Now I just realized I can't, but there is new stuff out there that's happening now. I was asking you if you were paying attention to, I guess, like the soap opera of ufology. And I wish I could have your look on it and just say, well, it's always changing and whatnot, you told me, and nothing ever happens. But is there anything that ever happens that you could share with us that you know of?
I take the perspective of what happened, June 24th, 1947 with Kenneth Arnold, and how this field has progressed since that time frame. Have we really progressed at all? Have we made a breakthrough? A little bit, yes, we have. But we really gotten the physical evidence that we need to move this field forward? I think that's what everyone's looking for. We still need the 8 by 10 glossy black and whites. We still need the gun camera footage. We still need the physical evidence. We still need the autopsy reports. We still need the bodies. And we don't have like any of that. I mean, we really need a lot more than what we've got.
And then you add in abductions and those experiences, which, the mainstream media won't really talk about because it's a little too kooky, I guess they think. But that's what's always bringing me back to the field. No matter how much we don't progress, it's the abduction cases that really stick in my mind. Like, how could everybody having the same experience be crazy? It's just not so. Mm-hmm. So, are there any? I know you have some cases of abductions in there, right? Anyone that sticks out?
I've got very few abduction cases.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah, one that I sort of cover, but I'm really more hardware than anything else. I really am. I'm just interested in getting the eyewitness testimony and then the sketches associated with their sighting, and then through the use of illustrations, drawings, full color renderings, making the case come alive. That's really what I'm interested in.
You are in, that's right, I just remembered, you're in Above Top Secret, the new documentary that the Cousins brothers made, which will be out in February.
Yeah. Yep.
I couldn't believe the things you were saying, because like I said, I know what you do, but you were saying things that I believe in. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. Man, he really doesn't believe we're ever going to have truth. You don't think we'll ever have disclosure on this?
I don't know. I mean, we're looking at 80 years here. We're
That's it.
We're pushing the envelope on this, and we're still not there. We're still not there. I mean, this is a multi-headed hydra we're dealing with here. Even Jalen Hynek said that if UFOs were nothing more than extraterrestrial spacecraft, how boring that would be. Even he knew that this thing was a multi-headed hydra. So we're looking at, we could be looking at interdimensional. We could be looking at homegrown things. We could be looking at a pre-existing high-tech civilization, and you wrap that all together, and that could be one facet of this. So I just want to know, how further along have we gotten since we started this? We've made some progress, but yet here we are all these years later, and we still don't have the answers to the primary questions in this whole thing.
Yeah. Who are they? What do they want? Where do they come from? Yeah, that's what I want to know. Everybody does. But
that's right.
And I've been in the field now going on 18 years, and I stay focused on what's, the drama and everything else that's going on. And I seem to be getting good at predicting that nothing will ever happen, because that is the answer. It's always the answer.
Right. There's always this buildup, right? This huge buildup. And then when we get to this deadline, boom, it's crickets. It's a nothing burger. And everyone gets disappointed. And then 2-3 years goes by, and then there's another buildup. And it always takes the wind out of your sails. It never delivers.
Doesn't that have to do with the administration in office at the time, you think? Because of funding, they sign new things?
Well, that could be, but a case can be made that even the highest elected official, the president, he doesn't have a need to know. He's never been briefed. He's never been read into these programs. So what would he know, right? He doesn't have access to the information. If he doesn't have access to the information, how can he release it? So, a case can be made the president doesn't know. So.
Yeah, president's so temporary. It's
so
not a
temporary, right?
Who would know, though, if you were to hedge a guess?
The intelligence agencies. They have the underground vaults, the Air Force bases. They have libraries as well, and we can talk about where those are. But yeah, and the other places that we won't talk about. But
sure, yeah. I was talking about Bob Lazar last night, and I don't think I've ever heard you talk about Bob Lazar. Not that I remember. I've seen a lot of your interviews, but do you have any opinion on what he said he did at S4? Do you think he actually worked there, or do you think he was a test subject?
Well, I always wonder, why haven't any test pilots come forward stating, hey, yeah, I flew over that area and I saw there was a remote facility that they were testing things. We never hear any of that. Yeah. We never hear any independent confirmation from actual test pilots that flew around that whole area during that whole time. None of them.
You think, yeah, you think that we would have heard something.
We'd hear something, we'd hear something. And then the fact that, that gentleman who flew a 152 over Papoose Lake, he got clearance from Dreamland Tower there, and he flew all around there. He didn't see any evidence of a facility built into the side of the mountains and with a textured part that blends in with the background. Now, it's possible, but he didn't see anything like that. And you can go back and check the aerial photographs 10, 20, 30 years. There's just nothing there. Now, we would have heard something from the test pilots, and we've heard nothing. We've heard nothing.
That's interesting, yeah.
At least one test pilot that flew out of that area that has free reign of that whole range there, they'd come forward and say, yeah, we saw some things. We don't know what it is, but we saw some. And we know that there's a slight remote operating facility there. Nothing. We don't hear that from any of them. We would have heard something to verify independent confirmation. Yeah. We've got nothing.
Could the fear of God been put into these people, with the NDA, and they just won't talk about it?
I suppose. But again, where's the physical evidence? What about the dose badges? We never heard that anybody there was wearing dose badges, but if you go to the Atomic Testing Museum in Las Vegas, they have a whole display of dose badges. Why didn't we hear about those people who allegedly worked at S4? They should be wearing dose badges, right? Because the whole Papoose Range is irradiated. You would think. It's irradiated. So wouldn't they have those? We never hear about that.
I'm even surprised that Las Vegas is there, to be honest with you.
That's true.
With all the bombs they dropped there. Well, yet I doubt, I always say, if we ever have disclosure, it's not going to be in my lifetime. But the stories, the abductions, you have illustrations you're going to show us shortly. Sure. I mean, these are actual craft nuts and bolts. But I said last night and pretty much all week that what if there are no aliens and the whole thing is just a cover for military?
Well, can't discount that either.
There's too much. That's why even if they did tell us, I'd be like, all right, I want to touch one now. We're getting to the point where just seeing it's not going to be enough. We're going to have to be meet and greet with them.
I think what you just said is closer to the truth than we all realize. There could be some serious truth to what you just said right there.
You see, I don't see that ever happening, though, in my lifetime. I think we're so far away from it. And I think that there's too many things that would happen. There would be people would lose their minds, I think. They'd be scared. And people say, oh, no, I'll just get my gun. And, well, I don't know what that would be like, but.
We've got some testimony, and we can get into it here, from a gentleman who had firsthand knowledge of dealing with this, like exactly this subject we're talking about. So he was a Marine in 1963, and we can go into the illustrations, but very briefly, he was a Marine in 1963, and this came from the Leonard Stringfield collection.
Okay.
And, this was December 1963. So it's literally days and weeks after the Kennedy assassination, November 22nd, 1963. So we're talking literally days after Kennedy got shot in Dallas.
Interesting, yeah.
So this Marine, he gets woken out of a dead sleep, and he was a guard serving in the Marines. He was an MP type guy. Mm-hmm. He also dealt with nuclear weapons, so he was high up in security clearance. So he gets this call, and he is told to board a plane. Okay, now this is coming from the Marine. This is not coming from me, and this is via Leonard Stringfield collection. He boards this plane, which has blacked out windows, and he flies approximately 3 hours from Cherry Point, North Carolina. They land. Now, I don't know where they land. Leonard Stringfield doesn't know where he landed, and he didn't even know where they landed. It could be a naval facility, a intelligence facility, it could be an Air Force facility. They never told him. So they take him up after he gets out of this plane with blacked out windows. They take him up to this building. They open up the quote-unquote hangar doors, and sitting right dead center in the middle of this hangar is a 40-foot diameter disc-shaped craft. It looks like a fat hamburger. It's got elliptical shaped windows wrapped around the outer circumference. There were about 9 of them. They were opaque, so you couldn't see through them. Mm-hmm. He said that I could not see through them. He also mentioned that there was an entry hatch on the bottom of this disc, and I'm just pointing a picture so you can do this. And of course, I've got all the drawings too. But
Oh,
that's
well,
fine.
do you want me to share? Do you want to share it?
We can do that. Yeah, we can do
Okay. I didn't
We can
catch
do
what you
that.
were saying there. So
that.
I'll send that.
I will share.
Okay.
And then I'll minimize. And then I'll go into here. And I don't know if you can see this yet. I don't know if you're able to see this.
I have to accept it.
You have to accept it. Okay.
I'm not seeing it.
You're not seeing it? So,
it should pop up. Did you hit share?
Yep, I hit share. So
Try that again.
let me want to go back here. Share screen. Share screen. How about now?
I'm not seeing it. Let me see if this works. No, that's my screen. I'm not. Oh wait, here it says screen sharing was canceled. Make
Really?
Sure. Yeah. So maybe just I didn't see it the first time. If you want to do it one more time.
Okay. Share. Let's see.
So weird.
Entire screen. Share. How about now? Now
There
we're
it
back
is.
to this one.
Yes, sir. We got it.
So if I minimize and then I bring up this, do you see this?
Yes.
You do.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's perfect.
All right. So you see that. Okay. So this is what the craft looked like here. And it's 40 feet in diameter. It's 15 feet tall. And he said that on the lower part of this craft, there was an entry hatch, a quote unquote entry hatch. And he said that this hatch was so fully integrated into the bottom skin of this disc that you could not put a razor blade between here.
Wow.
It was so fully integrated. He also said that there was a 1-inch lip or gap between the outer skin of the craft and the outer portion of the opaque window, some type of a 1-inch lip there. And if you look here, you'll see these red dots. I don't know if you can see those.
Yeah, very easily.
Okay.
Yep.
Those red dots were the attempted points of entry. They actually tried to breach the hull of this thing. Okay. And there were these white lab coat technicians. Now, what's interesting is, and this Marine said that they had built scaffolding. Okay. So they propped this thing off the hangar floor, what we believe to be a hangar, about 5 feet, and they built scaffolding on this thing. So the whole thing was levitated off the floor. And they built a catwalk around this thing, so you could walk around the outer circumference of this thing,
This
and
is
you could
fantastic.
walk under it. Okay?
Yeah.
If you look at my blow up here, you'll see the 1-inch lip.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you can see that, but that's
Sure.
the 1-inch lip he talked about. Here are the elliptical shaped windows. All right. So now what the Marine said is he said the first thing they tried to do is they used a diamond tip drill bit to breach the hull of this thing. Okay. We'll flash back to here again. You can see all these little red dots. They were actually putting the diamond tip drill bit on the seam of the hatch because they thought it might be a lower stress area.
Yeah.
They tried to get in there, and that didn't work. Okay. So they gave up on that plan. The next plan was they were going to use an acetylene torch. So they brought a torch up to this thing. They put it on there. No effect whatsoever. No effect. Now, I also...
What was the skin made of? The outside?
We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. Now, there was a U.S. Navy admiral, because his job was to stay with the disc, and he was to guard the disc for a period of 2 weeks. This is in all the correspondence. I actually interviewed the gentleman who interviewed the Marine.
Okay.
So I have him on tape. He described the entire encounter. I have the gentleman's name. I know where he lived in '86. I don't know if he's still alive. Okay, so there was a white circle painted on the floor of this hangar facility, and his job was to shoot to kill anyone, repeat, anyone who tried to breach that circle. And this admiral walked a little bit too close, and he was within like 2 seconds of getting shot. He also heard through water cooler discussions that bodies were involved in this retrieval as well. He doesn't know where it came from, but he heard talk of bodies being associated with this. Okay, so then after doing these 2 drawings, I went ahead and commissioned some full color artwork. So that's what you see here. Okay, you can see the scaffolding. You can see the fact that they're trying to breach the hull of it. And if you look on the lower left of this illustration, and maybe we'll go to full screen here, but you'll see that there's these 2 electrical cords going
see.
from the outside to what you see here. Now, he also said that after they tried the acetylene torch, they brought in not one, but two 18-wheeler tractor trailers with these electrical generating devices sitting on the tractor trailer. Then they were feeding these cables, 3-inch thick gauge cables from the generating device to the inside of the hangar. They were using a laser on this thing.
Wow.
They were shining a laser on the bottom of the skin. When they moved it away, it was warm to the touch, but it made no effect whatsoever. No effect whatsoever. Now, there was one time during this 2-week period that he was left alone with this craft. And within the notes that I obtained and the gentleman who interviewed this Marine, he said that he had a small Minox camera and he took a photo of this thing.
Cool.
He took a photo of it. However, in 83, that photo was lost in a flood. So the evidence, as you know, is always 2 steps ahead of us. Here we're so close. We are so close to breaking this thing. We're so close of getting the physical evidence, the evidence that we need to finally break it. You know, we finally got the evidence. We do have retrievals. They are real. There's a reverse engineering program. We've got the bodies. We've got all the proof, and yet it gets lost. And that's how we always end up in this field. Ufology can never get a break. They're always 2 steps behind. However, we do have the original sketches from the Marine, and that's what these illustrations are based off of. Now, I just commissioned a brand new piece of artwork. I'll give credit to Jose Sanchez for doing that. Now, this will be a world exclusive. This is a world exclusive. No one's ever seen this.
Sweet.
Here is the gentleman with the diamond tip drill pit trying to breach the hull of the craft in the hangar up on the scaffolding. So
yeah, you can see
you can kind of see it.
Yeah. This is Jose Sanchez. Yeah, big fan of our show here too.
Yeah.
I've never seen this. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, this is a world exclusive here. So. You ain't going to see this anywhere else. So we'll hit
great,
you with the 22-inch rims, you know.
Yeah.
But, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so that's how this thing done. Now, the last day that he was there, he saw that they took the craft down from the scaffolding. They were loading it on an 18-wheeler tractor trailer. They were putting a tarp over the craft itself, and then they put chains over it, and it was being moved to the next location. And so you can see that if this story is true, which I believe it to be true, if you read the wording of the original interview, this is just some regular Marine. He wasn't seeking, any kind of fame. He was just calling it like he saw it. And getting back to your question, which is kind of a long way to answer this, when the gentleman that I interviewed, who interviewed the Marine, when they were talking about the effects that this will have on the public, what will be the actual effects? We always hear this disclosure term kicked around, like what will actually happen in the real world. And here's what this gentleman said. He said that there will be a cross section of society that will be so excited. They will be thrilled. Their mind will be blown. Here we've got this truth that they've been hiding from us for 80 years. It's finally coming out. We've got the bodies, we've got the craft, we've got all the photos, everything. We've been wanting to tell you this for so long, and here we're finally telling you. There'll be a cross section of society that will be so thrilled to hear this. Then he said, which I thought was interesting, kind of like a psychological evaluation on the public's reaction. He said that there will be a faction of society that will be furious, repeat furious, that they are interrupting their Monday night football, okay, with this announcement. They will be absolutely furious. And
of course,
that's what his thought was. Some people, they don't have a curious bone in their body, and they could care less. They could care less.
That's amazing to me.
Yep, they could care less.
Who did the first illustrations you were showing?
Okay, I did this one based off the original sketch from the Marine, and then the gentleman that I interviewed, they were sketching this as they were doing the interview. This is back in '86, so he allowed me to get access to those original sketches. So I created this one. I created the second one. This one was done by John McNeil.
Okay.
And then this one was done by Jose Sanchez. So this
amazing.
is just brand new here. Now, I want to close the loop on this, but in order to close the loop, we have to go back in time. Okay, so this is 63.
Okay.
And we've always heard that Roswell was the crash retrieval. But if you go even further back, and let's take that back all the way here, let's go to the first crash retrieval that we kind of all know about here. And let's go over here, right? So Cape Girardeau, this is April 1941. And this comes by Charlotte Mann, who has she's very well connected to this. Now, her grandfather, William Huffman, was the Baptist minister at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is April the 20th, 1941. And the minister it's called, he's called at night. It's around 9:30 p.m. A policeman knocks on the door. And he says, we have a crash of an aircraft that we believe is an aircraft. Would you please come and help us out? We don't know exactly what we're dealing with here. We need some assistance here. So he agreed. He climbs into the sheriff's police car. They drive 15 minutes across town. When they get there, of course, by now it's 10 o'clock, and they see some smoldering flames in the background. The police are on the scene. There's some farm personnel there. The military did not arrive yet. And what he describes seeing is approximately a 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft with a dome on top. It had augured in at about a 20-degree angle. There was a hull breach on the side of the craft showing some of the interior components. There were some, you could say, buttons and switches and levers. It kind of looked mechanical. Then he said that there were 3 bodies near the craft. One was very near the entry hatch. The other one was thrown out a little bit. The other one was still alive. And he got to the survivor about 60 seconds prior to him passing.
Oh.
Okay. So if anyone wants to hear more about this, you can go to the MUFON Journal, November 2001, where they interview Charlotte Mann. She talks about Reverend William Huffman, and the whole story is brought out in this particular document. Now, Ryan Wood interviewed her as well. So we have her testimony from Ryan Wood. So that's kind of an independent source that talks about this. Now, next illustration is Reverend William Huffman over one of these beings. So like literally within seconds of this particular being passing, he was there, but he did get there in time. By this time, the military got there. There were fire personnel were there, and they were ushering everybody out of the area. They were sworn to secrecy. And what's interesting is there were newspaper reporters that were taking snapshots of this whole thing. And what they ended up doing is there were 2 farmhands that picked up one of these dead alien corpses. They propped it up under its armpits and outstretched its arms.
Oh my God.
And this gentleman snapped a photograph of this. Okay. And this story was relayed via Charlotte Mann to Leonard Stringfield. Here's a photograph of Charlotte Mann. Here is kind of like a really rough sketch of how this went down. So what I ended up doing is I took the information. Now, this isn't perfect, but we did the best we could. I took the information from Charlotte Mann. I worked with my illustrator, Tom Bogan, and we had known the story here from what Charlotte had told us. We knew that this was vintage 1941. So this photograph was handed down through the decades. She actually held this photograph in her hand multiple times.
Wow.
She gave a lecture at IUFOC about 2 years ago. She laid out the whole story. And she said, I did see the photograph. I held it in my hands multiple times. It was kind of handed down through the decades in our family. And there was this neighbor near the original home who was, quote unquote, a photography analysis type. And he wanted to, quote unquote, borrow the photograph.
Oh, no.
You can kind of see where this is going.
No.
Here. And they handed the photograph over to this gentleman, and pow, the photograph disappeared.
Of course.
And so this is number 2 now. The second time we've actually had photographs of this, and it disappeared.
Who's this do-gooder? Come on, man.
I know. This is terrible, right?
But it's a long time ago, yeah.
It's a long time ago.
Different
However,
time.
all is not completely lost. But that photograph disappeared. So I took all the information from Charlotte Mann. I took her original sketch, all the testimony within the journal, the information from Ryan Wood, put it all together, and we pieced together a replica
Cool.
of what this photograph might actually look like. And here is our replica. This is what the
Oh,
photograph
wow.
may actually look like. The arms were stretched out, supported under its armpits, and
It looks
the
real.
photograph would have been damaged. It might have been water damaged. It would have been faded, wrinkled, torn, burnt up. This is what it might look all these years later. Again, it's not perfect, but this is what we came up with based on the original testimony.
So
Now,
I see that the alien's wearing that suit that we hear.
some type of a tight blue colored flight suit. Yep. And we've heard that before as well.
Yeah.
This tight fitting flight suit keeps popping up in these cases. So here's the next question. Where could you hide 3 extraterrestrial bodies and a circular craft or debris of unknown origin in 1941?
Yeah.
So where would you hide it? You'd hide it at the Pentagon, right? You'd hide it at the Pentagon.
Oh,
the
wow.
problem is, in 1941, the Pentagon did not exist. So what they did, we believe, is they hid it under the underground vault at the U.S. Capitol in Washington,
Wow.
D.C.
That's
That's where it was.
That's a fact?
We don't know that for sure.
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
we
But
believe
that's where
it
it would
is.
have gone, yeah.
Okay, now here's the other thing too, though. We have the radio announcer Rush Limbaugh. Okay,
Sure.
most people are familiar with it. Okay, now here's the part of the story that gets kind of interesting, which lends a little credibility to this. Before Rush Limbaugh became the radio announcer that almost everyone knows about, they know his name. Before he was a radio announcer, he was an umpire living in Cape Girardeau, the same exact town where this all
What?
went down.
Oh,
So
man.
sometime in 96, a caller came in and they said, Rush, I've heard this story about, something crashed. It was a UFO and they recovered the bodies and the craft. It was all hushed up by the military and they put it in glass containers and they shipped it out and they're in a bunker somewhere. And is there any truth to that? And there was a pause and Rush came back and he said, there's more to that story than you know. And that was the end of that.
Rush,
So-
he looks like an umpire in a way. That is interesting, man. So
Yeah.
he knows, but we never
He knows
found
about
out.
this. He knew about this.
Aw.
He knew about this. He definitely knew about this.
Well, he lived
So-
there, yeah. So he probably heard a lot of things. Like
Yep.
I knew about the Phoenix Lights, things that nobody else heard of.
Correct.
So, okay.
So here's what it may have looked like in
Oh,
the
right
underground vault at the. Now we know that there were 3 bodies recovered. They were kept in glass containers or large glass jars.
Oh, I see him on the
There
right.
would have
there.
been debris there. There would have been part of the craft itself. But what I really wanted to highlight here. Oh, and we should talk about this too. This came from Ryan, and this is a memo. Now it's an interesting piece of evidence here. This is a memo from FDR, President FDR, to General George C. Marshall, dated February 27th, 1942. Now I'm not going to read the whole thing, but let's go over just the top part of this here. It says, this is President FDR talking.
Okay.
I have considered the disposition of the material in possession of the Army that may be of great significance toward the development of a super weapon of war. I disagree with the argument that such information should be shared with our ally, the Soviet Union. Consultation with Dr. Bush and other scientists on the issue of finding practical uses for the atomic secrets learned from study of celestial devices precludes any further discussion, and I therefore authorize Dr. Bush to proceed with the project without further delay. Now, this is back. Again, we'll go back. This is back in 42. Okay, so let's just break this down. Now, look at what he says here. He's talking about material in possession of the Army. Boom, right there. It talks about they've got hardware, they've got material. They're admitting that they've got debris. At the very least, they've got some small debris. They might have a crash retrieval. And remember, the 42. This would have been 42, which is just after the 41 crash retrieval, the Battle of Los Angeles. And we know that at least one craft was retrieved in the Battle of Los Angeles. So that makes sense that they were talking about material in possession of the Army. By the time 42 rolled around, they already had 2 craft in possession. So that checks out. That completely checks out. Then they talk about the development of a super weapon of war. So it sounds like what they're trying to do is they're trying to reverse engineer the propulsion system of the material in possession to build a super weapon. Then they talk about, look at the wording here.
Yeah.
Secrets learned from the study of celestial devices.
Wow.
Who uses that kind of wording? Who uses that kind of terminology?
People who
Celestial
have, yeah.
devices? That can only mean one thing. That can only mean
That's
a
it.
retrieval. That's it. There it is. That's it. It's in the wording from President FDR.
That's crazy. That's smoking gun right there, really.
It's kind of a smoking gun
Yeah.
document.
Smoldering, yeah.
There's more, though. There's more, because here's the second part of this story, which I pieced this story together, and I don't know why anybody else did. Maybe it wasn't as obvious, but as soon as I heard this from Charlotte Mann, I said, boy, we've got something here. Now, Charlotte Mann was a good friend of General Melvin McNichol. This is the Oklahoma, July 11th, 1986. Okay. So I want to document my sources. He was the base commander at Tinker Air Force Base, and he was very good friends with Charlotte Mann. They had a mutual interest in UFOs. And so Charlotte came to the general and said, General, we've been friends for a long time here, many years, and we have this mutual interest in UFOs. You've never told me anything. I'd like to know. I mean, can you tell me something here? You're a general. I mean, you should know, right? And so the general turned to Charlotte and he said, Charlotte, if you ever, I repeat, if you ever repeat what I'm about to tell you, I'll deny it. Not only will I deny it, it could end my career.
Ooh.
That's what he told her. And so what he said to her, this is what he said. He said three things. Number one, that he did see a UFO and it was located in the West. Okay. He also said it was propped up on scaffolding that you could walk around this thing. They made a catwalk around it.
Why?
And he said that bodies were recovered and one was still alive.
That's amazing.
It's virtually identical to what the Marines said in 1963.
Yeah.
He said that they had propped this thing up on scaffolding. He said they built a catwalk around this. And he heard through water cooler talk about bodies being recovered. This is exactly what Melvin McNichol had said.
So is it real, or is it just is this a made up story that they're...
No, it's not a made up story.
The one in 63, I mean.
Yeah, we've got two independent sources
that
unreal. Don't know anyone who are coming forward with the same information. And when I heard that from Charlotte Mann, that this general said that they built scaffolding and propped this thing up, I go, oh boy,
That's so
we got
cool.
it. We got it now. We got it. We're there.
See, this is what I love about ufology, this stuff. That's corroborating without corroborating.
It's corroborating. It's corroborating. I mean, here, this guy said it was located in the West. Okay, if you take off on a plane and you fly 3 hours from Cherry Point, North Carolina, that puts you within the range of the West.
It does. Nevada.
It does.
Yeah.
That checks out. and when do you hear about UFOs being propped up on scaffolding?
Never.
How would this guy know this? How would he know this? The Marine said the same thing. He said the same thing. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Here's my question. What did President Kennedy know about UFOs? Mm-hmm. When did he know it, and who did he tell? That's what we need to know. That's what we need to find out.
Did
he tell Marilyn Monroe between the sheets?
He did.
Now you know we did. You know he did.
Of course
he did.
Always trying to impress. That's amazing. Yeah, and what did he know? A lot of people think that's one of the reasons he was, executed.
Who knows?
Anyway, yeah. But now I see why you went back to that one.
Yeah, there's a tie-in. All this stuff is connected. There's always a tie-in to this. And since we're on the roll of these crash retrievals, let's just keep on going down the road here. So,
I love
this story. The Jackie Gleason story is like just about my favorite legend in ufology. It's never been proven conclusively. We don't have hard evidence. We've got some tangential evidence that we'll talk about here, but it's just one of these legendary stories within ufology. So let's kick this off. So It's Homestead Air Force Base. It's February 19th, 1973. Now, the first part of this story is 100% true, and I can prove it. No problem at all.
Okay.
I can prove it, no problem. So this is Jackie Gleason, President Richard Nixon at the Charity Golf Course outing. This is Florida, February 1973. They did get together. Here's
Yeah.
Jackie Gleason. You can see the president here. They actually did get together, and as the story goes, the subject of UFOs came up around the ninth hole. And Jackie Gleason turns to the president, and I will state up front that Jackie Gleason was a huge paranormal fan. I mean, like huge. The guy was totally into UFOs, the paranormal. He had a huge library.
Big
His
time.
home was called the Mothership. It was built in the shape of a UFO. It still exists today. You can actually go see Jackie Gleason's home, and it looks like a UFO.
Cool.
The guy was 100% into it. So he turns to the President Nixon and he says, Mr. President, I have this huge interest in UFOs. I've been wanting to know this my whole life. I've had this huge interest. What can you tell me? Can you tell me anything? So the president turns to Jackie Gleason's and he says, Jackie, if you'll be available later this evening, I might be able to help you with that. So they finish up their golf outing, and Jackie didn't think too much of it. He goes back home, and somewhere around 11:30 at night, there's a knock on the door. So Jackie gets up, he opens the door, and it's Richard Nixon standing in the doorway. It's the president. He's all alone, no Secret Service. He drove his own car. And there's been some conflicting reports. Oh, the president, they don't do that. They don't sneak away. Apparently, Richard Nixon had a history of doing this. So
right, he loved to drive, I heard.
Yep. He shows up at Jackie Gleason's house alone, and he says, Jackie, what we were talking about on the golf course this afternoon? And he said, yeah, I do. I remember. He says, why don't you come follow me? So Jackie Gleason gets in the passenger side of Richard Nixon's car. They drive from the house of Jackie Gleason, which he was living in Miami or Inverary at the time, and they drive to Homestead Air Force Base. They get to the far side of the base where they have the entry gate, the security gate, and the security guard is shocked, right? It's the president. It's the president. And Jackie Gleason, the famous actor, is sitting on the passenger. He can't believe it. So he waves the president through. They drive to the far end of Homestead Air Force Base, and they are met with a escort, and the escort brings both the president and Jackie Gleason into this facility. And I want to take you inside the facility now and to show you what they saw, okay?
Yep.
What they ended up seeing are at least six vintage Coke freezers, okay? If you've ever known these Coke freezers, but that's what they saw. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go in here. This is what they saw. These Coke freezers.
Yeah. Okay.
There were six of them there. And now I'm taking you in the hangar. There were the remains of these childlike, mangled, and burnt, quote unquote, extraterrestrial bodies that were small statured, about 3 feet. They looked like children. In the background, there were these blue bins and then debris within the blue bins, believed to have been the debris from this crash retrieval. I don't know the timeline. Okay. This could have been Kingman. This could have been Aztec. I don't know. Could have been 53-48 time frame. He never found out.
Yep.
So here's Jackie Gleason. He's looking within these things. I mean, he's shocked to his core. We'll go ahead and we'll advance here. Here's Jackie Gleason looking inside the Coke freezer, and he can't believe what he's seeing. Wouldn't you love to be on the trip home that night, wondering what was going through Jackie Gleason's mind?
Oh my God.
So it's now after 12 midnight, obviously. The president brings Jackie Gleason back home, and according to Jackie Gleason's ex-wife, Beverly McKittrick, because she didn't know where he went. This guy disappeared. Where did he go for an hour or so? When he got back home, he plopped down on the couch, and he was a changed man from that point forward. He was never the same after that. He was a completely changed man. All right, so what evidence at all do we have to prove any of this? Is this just like this legend in ufology, or do we have any proof of any of this? Okay, so I started digging, right? Okay. Here's what I came up with. Fort Lauderdale News, February 1st, 1973. Florida's most star-studded sport event, Super Golf with Superstars. So here's the advertisement for this Inverary golf outing. It actually did take place. Here's the blow up here. 1973 Jackie Gleason Inverary National Airlines Classic, February 19th through the 25th. So the dates check out. There was such an event. So he was there with the president. That all checks out.
Like, why would anybody make up that story, though? Just because Jackie Gleason had an interest in it? Make up all this? It sounds pretty good.
I know it sounds good. And there's other reasons to believe it, too.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm gonna talk about that as well. But here's the Tampa Tribune, February 20th, 1973. President Nixon and host Gleason smiling in the rain. They rode entertainers' golf cart around Inverary course. So we know that the event did take place. What we want to know is, did the second part of it take place? Okay, so Miami Herald, February 20th, 1973. Here's the president talking during the event. So we've proven that he was there. They were both together on that day. So let's talk about the timing, right?
Yep.
I did a Google map from Miami, Florida to Homestead Air Force Base is 38 minutes. It's 28.8 miles. My question is, could the president have picked up Jackie Gleason in Miami? Could they have driven to Homestead Air Force Base? Could they have viewed the bodies and the debris and then drove him back like relatively quickly?
Of course.
Could they have pulled it off? Could they have pulled it off? Now, you know it would have been late. So it would have been like 11 or 12 midnight. So this is back in 1973. In 2021, they said it's a 38-minute drive. Back in 73 at 12 midnight, there would have been nobody on the road at that time. So you can easily shave off 8 minutes right there. So now we got a 30-minute drive. So that's 30 minutes there. Let's say they spent 10 minutes at this facility. That's a very conservative number.
Wow,
10 minutes there, and then 30 minutes back. They could have done it in just over an hour.
Yeah.
It's
anywhere.
feasible.
Yeah, for sure.
It's feasible. It could have been done, and nobody would have known. I mean, they could have pulled it off. Okay, so here's another one. Dayton Daily News, May 14th, 1993. Jackie Gleason claimed that Richard Nixon took him to Homestead Air Force Base and he viewed alien bodies. That's written about in a book here, and it isn't just Jackie Gleason. Okay, next one.
William Shatner?
Yeah, something else. William Shatner experienced something strange out in the desert, but he won't say what it is. Okay. The Times Tribune, July 5th, 1987. Here's the key part of this. In her unpublished biography of the funny man entitled The Great One, Beverly Gleason's second spouse described a bizarre trip Jackie took with then president in 1973 to Homestead Air Force Base in Florida to see what she says were the bodies of 4 dead space aliens recovered by the Air Force. Okay, so she had a manuscript titled The Great One. It was never published, though. That's the thing. So if we could get a copy of this manuscript, it wouldn't be bombshell conclusive evidence that this took place, but it would be another piece of the puzzle to add to what we already know. So that's interesting. Okay,
that's
here's another
unbelievable. That's crazy.
Larry W. Bryant, who is director of the organization, because he had Operation Right to Know, he had this organization. Larry W. Bryant, who is the director of the organization, wrote back that there have been reports that MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, near you, Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, and Homestead Air Force Base near Miami have all served as way stations or temporary repositories for crash saucer artifacts. Wow. Boom. Right there.
That's
now,
unreal, yeah.
The other part of this is 10 years ago, well, it's more like 15 years ago now, I was in contact with a retired U.S. Navy combat veteran. His name was Jack D. Pickett. He claims that in 1967, he saw at least 4 U.S. jet flying wing disc aircraft at MacDill Air Force Base. And he said that they had a library there where they had gun camera footage, photographs, 8x10 color, 8x10 glossy, black and white, the film reels, everything we would need to move this whole field forward. And here in this Tampa Tribune article, they're talking about MacDill as being one of these repositories
Right.
for this information. That checks out. I knew Jack Pickett personally. I interviewed him. I knew the man personally. He talked about MacDill being one of these places. It checks out. It checks out.
It's
so
wild.
Here we can
Yeah.
see we're building the case from multiple different reference points for sure.
Man, 36 years. Yeah, I mean, it's almost 37 years ago. It just flew by. I mean, and that's what scares me. It's like we're still flying by and nothing is progressing as much as we would like it. But
Exactly.
I guess, yeah, we'll continue here. Yeah.
We just need to, what is it going to take? Let me get your impression. What do you think it's going to take to push this through?
It will have to be either, it won't be our government. I think it will have to come from the people or another country or an alien or a ship landing somewhere and a lot of people seeing it, or something is spotted out in orbit. I think that's what it would take. And then they broadcast it somehow it gets on TV, and it would have to be something like that without being too threatening. Maybe just one craft. I don't know. There's so many different ways we can go about it, right?
Right.
But
I think
this is...
Yep.
Go ahead.
It's going to take the physical evidence. Nothing short of the physical evidence is going to push this through, because that's what the scientific community will demand, and it's what the public will demand. They're going to want to see the actual hardware, and
They don't care
nothing
about
less than, yeah.
You think they care about what we think, the public? I think they just prove they didn't.
In a sense, I do. In a sense, I don't. And I don't. I agree with the Marine. He said that he knew that there would be a portion of society that would just be upset that their I Love Lucy reruns would be interrupted.
I know.
Or their Monday Night Football would be interrupted. And I agree with him. Some people just don't care, you know.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the majority anyway.
I don't think it's the majority, no.
But we don't really care about those people. Will come around once the evidence is proven. But you keep saying something. You've said it a couple of times. This is just another piece to the puzzle, you know. So that's what we're doing until we get I mean, there's so much evidence, you can't deny it. But I always go back to abductions, and I know they're going to stay away from that. You said there's not that many cases you have on abductions, but for me, that seems to sell it to me every time.
Really? Okay.
Do you not feel that? Do you think abductions are something in the mind when we go to sleep, or just something with the brain?
So do you focus in on modern cases or pre-internet
All of
cases?
them.
All of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I try to. Yeah, I'm familiar with, of course, the Betty Barney Hill and others like that. So yeah, well, yeah. But those have been proven to be not so truthful too. There's been a lot of holes in the stories, that Betty and Barney Hill. So
Yeah.
it's a shame. But there's millions of people who claim it, and not people who would come out. You would think, that would want to put their career on the line. Those type of people. Every type.
You're right. But that's the thing. How do we prove the abductions? How do we prove the crash retrievals?
Can't. Yeah.
That's the thing.
That's how it is with everything, though. Except,
that's right.
And what you have here is nice. The illustrations really sharpen what I'm trying to imagine. It looks great. I'd like to see more of those. But you have a huge book of all these stories, right? Like hundreds?
Sure.
How many do you have?
Well,
with illustrations.
300 3-ring binders. Now, they're not all historical cases, but yeah, yep.
Oh, yep. I didn't know it was that much.
Pertaining to all this stuff. Oh, yeah, we've only scratched the surface. We got enough here to continue on to the next ice age, to be honest with you. We haven't even scratched the surface of it yet. I mean, this is a lifelong crusade. This is not a short-term thing. This is a long-term historical documentation, preserving an important part of our national history. That's what this goal is.
And I think you have to keep doing what you're doing, because the more evidence we put together to this puzzle, it'll make it clear for the skeptics as well. Have you been paying attention to the Galileo project thing with Avi Loeb?
Not too much.
Okay,
Not too
I didn't
much.
know. I meant to ask
Not
you
too
earlier.
much. Yeah, that's
Um,
a little bit, but not too much.
so do you have more
Sure,
illustrations and
sure.
stories?
We
What's
can
the next
continue.
one here?
Well, why don't we can continue here, and we can continue with Roswell
All right.
since we're on this roll of crash retrievals
Oh.
here. Now, I want to bring this up because this was kind of done under the direction of Don Schmidt, and
Okay.
this is what I believe to be the most accurate map that's ever been made of the events surrounding the Roswell incident. Now,
Nice.
it wasn't just one event,
Right.
there's four events, and I want to break this down. So it's July 2nd, 1947. The actual impact site is about 35 miles north of Roswell, but that's not where we're going to begin. We're going to
Okay.
begin, a, you know, miles to the west of all that. If you look on this map, you'll see something here called the touchdown site. Now, this is a location where Louis Rickett and also Lincoln La Paz, they found and they discovered green fused glass. Okay, and we've always thought that that is indicative of high heat, like the trinitite that you see at Trinity site where they fuse the glass together and it's this green glass from the atomic
Yep.
explosion. That's what they found here.
Okay.
So we believe that this is the original touchdown site. Now, here's something that's like never talked about. They also found a black seamless box there too. To this day, I don't even think Don Schmidt even knows if they were able to open that box. They found a black box where this touchdown site was.
Never heard
What's
of
in it?
this.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they absolutely did find a seamless box. Who knows what's in it? I don't know. But
It's the flight recorder.
maybe it is. Maybe it is. Now, if we go 5 miles south of the
Mm-hmm.
touchdown site, we have the debris field. That is the location where Mac Brazel and Timothy D. Proctor got there on the morning of July 3rd. Okay, the event took place on the evening of July 2nd, 11:59 p.m. It wasn't until July 3rd that Mac Brazel got there. So this is the debris field. It's 65 miles northwest of Roswell. The trajectory was from the northwest to the southeast. So that's the trajectory of where this thing was flying. That's the location where they found all this debris on the Foster Ranch that the sheep could not cross. They also found a 10-foot wide by about 200-foot long gouge in the whole surrounding area there, that where Mac Brazel was. So let's continue heading eastbound with the arrows here,
Yep.
and we will go to the impact site. That's the crash site. Now, a total of 5 bodies were recovered, and 1 was still alive. That body lived until May of 1948,
Oh wow.
and it was seen at Wright Field. This is back in 1948. It was confirmed by Mac Magruder. He saw the survivor of the Roswell crash retrieval, according to Mac Magruder. Whole series of stories behind that, but we won't get into that. So,
Yeah.
if we talk about the impact site, and what we're dealing with here is an egg-shaped craft the size of a Volkswagen. It was not round. It was not circular. It was an egg-shaped craft. It had a dome on top, about the size of a Volkswagen. And as we mentioned, there were 5 bodies recovered. 1 was still alive. Now, if we go just about 2.5 miles west of the impact site, that's the second body site. So 2 more bodies were recovered at this location for a total of 5 bodies. So when you put that all together, that is the 4 separate incidents to the Roswell incident.
Got it. Yeah, I didn't know
That's the
about that.
general layout. Now, I want to take you to the area of where this took place. This is a photograph that was taken by Don Schmidt. This is what we're dealing with here. This is July 2nd, 1947. And you can see these rolling flat hills, kind of like the shrubbery, kind of like a desert scene. There's nothing out here. I mean,
No.
there's nothing but rolling hills. It's like very flat out here. You could see this for miles if you were flying over it. So now I want to take you to the actual debris field. So here we see Mac Brazel and Timothy D. Proctor at the debris field, and you can see the gouge in the background here and all this debris. So the way they rolled back then is if you were old enough to walk, you were old enough to ride a horse.
Okay.
So here you've got young Timothy D. Proctor. He was only 7 years old at the time with Mac Brazel. They get there early in the morning, and they see all this debris. What is this thing from? Where did this come from? Now, let me take you to the next part of this. Here is the actual beginning of the retrieval operation. This is July 8th, 1947. So whatever this thing was, it was sitting out in the desert for the night of the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th. It was already out there for like 5 days. And so you can see that the critters, the weathering, the effects of whatever was there was already starting to deteriorate the bodies. And that makes sense from the MPs who had to clean up the debris field and the bodies. Their clothes had such a stench that their wives had to burn their uniforms.
Oh, wow.
They couldn't get it out. So Don Schmidt talks about there being a water collection tower, kind of like a water tank, very close to where the craft went down. There was also a windmill there, so that's been confirmed. We've got the 6x track here with the troop transport. At least one vehicle or Jeep was present. We know that there was an Army ambulance present also from 509th Bomb Group. And then we've got the 18-wheeler tractor trailer that was going to be part of the retrieval operation. In the foreground of this illustration, you see the egg-shaped craft with the dome, and then the beginning of the retrieval of the bodies as well. And so this is July 8th, 1947. Now, I want to take you to the next part of this is the beginning of where they're shipping everything out, right? They're trying to get to Hangar P3 Building 84. So this is Roswell Main Street Convoy, July 8th, 1947. And we literally have this to plus or minus 5 minutes. It was 4 p.m. We've got this from multiple sources, at least 2 paper boys and multiple eyewitnesses on Main Street, July 8th, 1947, right around 4 p.m. All of a sudden, they start seeing this military convoy go right down Main Street. So there's 2 Jeeps up front. There's an 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy in between the Jeeps. And then following the trailer, there's 2 more Jeeps. And the witnesses said that they saw an egg-shaped craft that was on the trailer. They had a tarp over the craft itself, and they had ropes or some type of chains or cables covering this tarp. You could not see anything below this thing. Yeah. So they make their way down Main Street. It's a really short ride. So about 10 to 12 minutes later, they're already at Hangar P3 Building 84. And so that's where I want to take you next. I want to take you inside the hangar now.
Cool.
So now we're inside the hangar. Don Schmidt said that there was an MP guard on either side of the entryway to the hangar, and they were told to look forward and do not look back. You know, when this thing rolls into the hangar, do not look back into the hangar. And so what was inside? Well, here's what we know. By this time, they already had one body flight out. That was by Pappy Henderson in a C-54. So while all this is going on, we've got multiple things, multiple timelines converging at the same time. We've got the bodies coming in. We've got the craft coming in. They're already flying out from the first retrieval of the bodies. Pappy Henderson did that. So we've got the ambulance in here. We've got the troop transport. We know that there were 2 small statured child-sized caskets inside. They were building a crate to put these caskets into the crate. They were building a wooden crate. And then, of course, they brought in the craft itself. So this is kind of like headquarters for the operation. Yeah. And it's a chaotic situation. You know, they've got to get these bodies retrieved properly. They want to get everything in line. They have to keep this. Well, by this time, the whole story of a quote-unquote flying saucer was already burning up the airwaves in Roswell. You know, it had already reached the public psyche at this time. It was already on the street. So they really didn't keep a secret because there were people who got to the debris field before the military did. Mm-hmm. They saw this going on because there were floodlights. That night there were floodlights that were lighting up the retrieval operation. And eyewitnesses saw this. Yeah. We have this for sure. We know that happened. Okay, so what happened next? They build this crate. They put the small child-sized caskets in the crate, and then they start to begin the loading process. This would have been the night of July 8th, 1947, into the 9th of July, 1947. And what they did is they put 2 perimeter screens around atomic bomb pit number 1. So the atomic bomb pit is where they would put the atomic bombs in. Then they would taxi up the B-29 just over the bomb pit. And then by way of a hydraulic cylinder, they would hoist this bomb into the bomb bay. And so that's what they did with this crate.
Okay.
This has been July 9th, 1947. Now, that was eventually flown to the Air Medical Lab at Wright Field. And so here's the autopsy here inside the Air Medical Lab. This would have been after July 9th, 1947.
Doesn't it blow you away? They're not covered in hazmat suits or anything like that.
Yeah, well, that's true. You're right. You're right.
Back then, I don't know if they were prepared, right, for that. So they did what they could.
We, at the very least, we know, and this is brought up by Witness to Roswell by Don Schmidt and Tom Curry, that there were multiple, because they had 2 teams of 50 MPs that crisscrossed the debris field for at least 3 days, cleaning up debris, and anyone who was within the vicinity of the bodies, their military fatigues had the stench of dead, decrepit, decaying corpses on their body and on their thing, and they could not get that out, so they had to burn their clothes. Now, you tell me, does this sound like a weather balloon?
No,
a
not
weather
even
balloon?
close.
I mean,
no, not even close.
Why would you need 2 teams of 50 men for 3 days picking up the debris of a weather balloon? Who would care? Who would care, right? Why would you burn your clothes if it's a weather balloon? Why would you need an 18-wheeler to move a weather balloon? You could put that in the back of a Jeep. So already we've thrown out the weather balloon story. Already we've got that done deal.
I think so.
It even takes out the mogul balloon. It even shreds that.
It should. Yeah, big time.
It shreds that too. So, we're not even out of the gate here, and we've already destroyed those 2 theories. So bottom line, it's a done deal on there. Okay, so let's move on here since we're on this crash retrieval thing here. Credit has to go to Scott and Suzanne Ramsey about the Aztec crash retrieval, March 25th, 1948. Even the late Stanton Friedman said that both Scott and Suzanne Ramsey had put more information, blood, sweat, and tears and money into researching Aztec than he ever did or anyone ever did in Roswell. And that's not even known, basically. Fairly few people even know that they have put more research into this Aztec than anyone had ever done in Roswell, which I think is very interesting.
It is.
It's not talked about. So it's March 25th, 1948. And this is the area of where this came down, Hart Canyon. It's about 12 miles east of the town of Aztec in New Mexico. And if we continue on here, you can see here is the map that shows you where this thing came down. Site of saucer crash, 1948, Hart Canyon Road, and you can see the town of Aztec over here. It's kind of hard to see it, but that's the location of where we're talking about.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
Okay. So here is the drawing that I came up with based on Scott and Suzanne Ramsey. Now, this thing was 99.9 feet in diameter, kind of a highly polished chrome exterior. It had at least 6 elliptical shaped windows wrapped around the outer circumference of the dome. Now there's an upper dome and a lower dome. We'll move on to the next illustration here. So this is back in 1948.
Nice. Yeah.
Now, before the military got there, the oil field workers got there, and Scott and Suzanne Ramsey were able to piece the story together from the surviving oil field workers. And when they got there, here's the first thing they said. Because there was a military helicopter that did 1 orbit around this thing and then left. They didn't know, this is from Scott, they didn't know what was stranger, the helicopter or the dish-shaped craft, because in 1948, helicopters were still kind of new at that time. So they didn't know what was weirder, this helicopter or this dish-shaped craft. I mean, they were both oddball things. So they drive up their trucks, they climb up on the rim of this thing, they walk all the way to the outer beginning of the upper dome. And you can see that in this first illustration. So they're looking inside these porthole windows. And what did they find out? Because they walked around all these things. They looked in all these windows. They found out that one of these porthole windows had a crack in it, or a hole that was the size of a quarter. So they went back to the truck and they got a pole or a stick and they stuck that pull through that crack in the window and they started jiggling it around, they activated a device. Don't ask me how, don't ask me what, but Scott said that somehow they were able to hit a device or a lever or a button or a switch, some type of actuation, and an entry hatch opened on the bottom of the craft. Okay, so I want to take you inside the craft now and show you what they found.
This is unreal. I never heard of this.
That's why we're going to hit you with the 22-inch rims. Okay.
Yeah, I know. These are spinning rims at that.
Well,
this is amazing.
We'll get them. We'll get them. All right, so I'm going to take you inside the craft now, and here's what they found. They found in the upper dome of the craft, they found two quote-unquote extraterrestrial bodies that had kind of a brown, burnt exterior skin. They were dressed in one-piece, tight-fitting blue flight suits, just like the Cape Girardeau.
Yeah, of course.
They were slumped over on their chairs and then over on consoles, and they would look like they were sitting behind what looked like laptops. They weren't laptops. There was iconology on the console. There were purple or violet colored letters or symbols projected on the inside wall of the upper dome, and there were some switches inside. So here we've got two bodies. And they also walked into the mid-outer rim of the craft. They found 14 more for a grand total of 16 bodies.
Oh, my God.
There were 16 bodies associated with the Aztec retrieval. By this time, the military gets on the scene. So I'm going to take you there next. Here is the military. This is an overhead helicopter view. You can see the military is now on site. They're retrieving the bodies, 14 in total. Wow. A senator was involved. There was a minister involved. The military's there at the time. And according to Scott and Suzanne Ramsey, this was such a very large operation. All the hotels and motels in Aztec, when this was going on in 48, were completely sold out by the military. They had to ask the civilian population if they could borrow a room for a week or so. That's how prevalent this retrieval was. They actually sold out the entire town. All the motels were booked because they had such a military presence. Now that tells you something, right?
Yeah.
That tells you something. Okay, now what's next? What did they do next? And how do you move a 99-foot, 100-foot diameter dish-shaped craft over the desert?
Oh, one thing about that diameter, 99.9.
That's what they said, 0.9.
That's an interesting number.
I know it is. Why couldn't they just say 100? Well, that's what they said, 99.9.
Right. But nothing magical about it or anything, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So how do you move this large dish-shaped craft over the desert?
How large was it again?
100 feet in diameter.
Okay.
100 feet in diameter with a dome on top and a dome on the bottom. How do you move it over the desert, right? I mean, we don't have any kind of a trailer that could move that. No. Somehow the military found a pin device that linked this whole thing. And when you disconnect this pin device, it breaks the entire saucer into 3 equal pie segments.
Come on.
Nope. I'm not making this up. It's in the book. It's in the book. So what they did is they took these pie segments and they strung cables across the desert. They dragged these pie segments across the desert, brought them up on the 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboys, and they shipped them to Los Alamos. And they reassembled it there and began the reverse engineering process. And so we'll take you now. Here we have the guys moving these things out on the Dragon Wagon M25 tank transporters on their way to Los Alamos. And that's how this went down.
Jeez, man. 16 bodies. They were all perished except for one?
They were all dead.
They were all dead. Okay.
Yep, they were all dead. So here we've got evidence of they've got the debris, they've got the bodies, they've got the craft, they got everything. And if we're to believe what is talked about, they reassembled it, and since 1948 they've been reverse engineering not only the metallurgy involved in these retrievals, but also the propulsion systems and any biomedical advances that they procured from the bodies recovered. And they've had all this time to duplicate the technology. Have they done it? It's your question. It's your option. We can all think of what we want, and that's everyone's personal decision. But they're going to get something for all that research. They're going to do something from it.
I can't believe that it separated like that.
Yep. That's how it went down.
Doesn't that seem man-made to you, though?
It does seem man-made. Yes,
And
it
the
does.
chairs.
It seems very mechanical to me. Yes, it does. I totally
Man.
agree with you.
And we
I
were doing
totally
that
agree with you.
in the 40s? I
This
don't
is
know.
1948. Yep. All right,
My
we're going to move on
goodness.
to the next one. This is
Okay.
Kingman, Arizona. Now, this I want to mention this right up front. This was not, repeat, not a crash retrieval. This was a forced landing. That's the first thing we need to keep in mind.
Oh,
This was
okay.
not a crash retrieval. This was a forced landing. And the primary researcher who gets all the credit is Harry Drew.
Okay.
Harry Drew is the guy who gets the credit for doing the research and reference, legwork, all the groundwork for the Kingman UFO forced landing. Now, why was it a forced landing? Because in Kingman, they were experimenting with a high power radar range. And I'm talking about they turned up the power on this thing like big time. So whatever this craft was flying through this range. And when it got caught within this experimental high power radar, it somehow it interacted with the navigation system, propulsion system, and this thing did a soft landing. It was so severe that when birds flew through this radar range, they dropped dead immediately in
Oh,
mid-flight.
wow.
They just dropped dead immediately. That's how powerful this thing was. So this is May 18th, 1943. It was about 30 feet in diameter, about 14 feet tall, had an entry hatch on the bottom part of the rim. There was these notches or grooves around the outer circumference of the craft. And what happened next is there was a group of scientists that took off from Indian Springs Air Force Base. They flew to Phoenix. Okay, this is all from Harry Drew, and he has a book that describes this. They were joined with 15 others. There was a grand total of 40 of these atomic bomb scientists, engineers. They all had kind of a specialty. It's at night. They take off from Phoenix and they're driving in a General Motors bus that had blacked out windows. They drive from Phoenix all the way up to Kingman, Arizona.
Yeah. That's
Now, this is
5'4".
prior to when a lot of these paved roads were paved. So a lot of this trip was kind of done on dirt roads. So you can imagine this long drive to Kingman at night. These guys really aren't told where they're going. They're told that, we have a special device that we'd like you to leave the bus according to your expertise. We want to get your impressions on this. And then when we get back, you're not allowed to talk about this. It's a done deal. So they finally get there. It's at night. Now I want to take you to the scene at night. Here we go. Did UFO crash in desert near Kingman in 1953? Arizona Republic, November 18th, 2016. They talk about a little bit of this here, but Harry Drew is actually the premier researcher. So here's what the scene looks like at night.
Nice.
You can look in the background here, that bus that I talked about with the blacked out windows. Now they had put a tent on all the portions of this disc, and they had light alls that were lighting this whole thing up. Now, there were approximately 4 bodies associated with this particular retrieval. 3 of them were right next to the craft itself. They were all alive. They were living.
Oh.
The other one was ahead of the 3. He was the quote unquote leader of this. Now, somehow the U.S. military established communication. I don't know how, but they established communication with the leader. And they asked this leader if the other 3, for the grand total of 4, if they would join and leave with the military. And this leader said that we will join you on one condition and one condition only, that you do not separate us. That was the agreement. And they said, according to Harry Drew, this craft still had some residual power left in it.
Oh, wow.
Something was still running. So when military medical personnel walked into the craft, they were on the inside. Within about 10 seconds, they came out and they were throwing up. They had to kneel down. They were throwing up all over the desert floor. This happened 2 or 3 times. So the military, when they established communication with the leader, they asked if he would please go back inside and turn this thing off, whatever it was, which he did.
Cool.
And they weren't sure if he was going to just climb in and leave. They didn't know. But He stayed. So they got that thing pretty much all turned off. It sounds like there was still a little bit of residual power there. And the reason why I say that, and that's the next illustration, is they had to build a cradle. So they took one of these M25 tank transporters. They built a wooden cradle with beam, you could call it 8-by-inch wooden beams.
Okay.
That's what they built. And they propped this dish-shaped craft onto this cradle, and they were moving it across the desert to what we believe to be the remote test site in Nevada. Now, here's where the story gets a little bit even stranger, because things didn't start going there until 1955. Now, this is in 1953. This is 2 years prior to. So there's a little bit of confusion. Was it really there that this thing was brought? Did they actually bring it there, or was it another location? Harry Drew says, and he will stand by this, that it was brought to the remote test site in Nevada. Now, that's his words, not mine. So how do you get a dish-shaped craft from Kingman, Arizona to the remote test site in Nevada? You have to cross the Colorado River, right? You have to. So what they found out is they could not get the dish-shaped craft over the Hoover Dam because the dish-shaped craft was too large. The diameter was too large, and it was affecting the light poles. They couldn't do it. So what they ended up doing is they went about 200 feet north of the north wall of the Hoover Dam. There's something there called a put-in, where you can put in a small boat or a raft. And so they drove the M25 tank transporter with the dish-shaped craft on top. They drove it to the beginning part of the put-in, and then the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they floated. And now remember, this is a chaotic situation. It's at night. They're screaming. They got to get this thing out of here before daylight breaks. They float this barge down the Colorado River, and they truck this 18-wheeler tractor trailer with the dish-shaped craft onto the barge, and they string cables from one state to the other.
Jeez.
And they're by these cables, they're pulling this barge down the Colorado River, and guess what happened next?
Oh no.
The cable snapped.
Oh no.
The cable snapped, so this whole thing is floating down the Colorado River. It only has 200 feet to go. And you can kind of see where this is going.
Yeah.
The outer rim of the dish-shaped craft hits the north wall of the Hoover Dam. It actually makes impact with this thing. So we believe, and now would be I would love to do this. Since the water levels are so low in Lake Mead, you should be able to see the impact mark where the dish-shaped craft hit the Hoover Dam. It's there.
Cool.
It's there. So they strung another cables across there. They eventually make it to the other side. And again, remember, these guys are cussing. They're swearing. It's chaotic. They've got to get this thing across the river. Because people are going to see this thing. If they don't do this now, when day breaks, there's going to be people looking at this thing, and their secret is blown. They eventually make it to the other side, and according to Harry Drew, they bring it inside one of the facilities at the remote test site in Nevada. Now that's from Harry Drew. I'll go ahead and do an enlargement here so you can get a better view, and then we'll do one more enlargement that shows you what the craft actually looks like as they're bringing it across. So this is 53. So already we've got, all right, let's break this down.
Yep.
We've got Cape Girardeau 41. We've got Battle Los Angeles 42. We've got Roswell 47. We've got Aztec 48. We've got Kingman 53. So we're already talking about 5, maybe 6 crash retrievals already. By 1953, they already had 6 crash retrievals and at least, who knows, 20 bodies to go with it.
35, 40.
Who knows at this point?
Yeah, right.
So there you go. I mean, if this really is true, right? I mean, where's the bombshell evidence? How do we prove any of this? Where is the physical evidence? It's now in the minds of the people who are there, and there's no one left anymore. As you know, there are no 509th Bomb Group members left. It's over. It's cover-up complete. They're all gone. So it's left to the memory of the children, of the people who were there, or the documents, the photographs,
what
the
you're
vaults,
doing.
the vaults, that's what we've got left. And it's our legacy. It's a part of our national history.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
It's the tip of the iceberg. That's right.
So here I do a show every night, and I'm like, yeah, there's not that much evidence that, and then here you are with all this in a good hour. I mean, that's
Well,
just
I mean,
amazing.
Harry Drew has already written a book about this, and he what he did is he is a legitimate historian, and here is his book.
Okay.
Okay, 7 Days in May, the Kingman UFO story, and in this he talks about how there was a atomic bomb scientist by the name of Arthur Stanzel. This whole story revolves around Arthur Stanzel
Oh,
because
okay.
he talked about this. In 73, he was interviewed by a high school student. And in there, he kind of let the cat out of the bag. And Harry Drew said, boy, would I love to get a copy of that article. But since this is a long time ago, this is, pre-internet days, there was no way to get this because this is a long since gone published article. He didn't get access to it. But since Harry was a librarian historian and he had credentials to back it up, he actually called, and this is in the book. You can see this in the book. He actually called the library and he explained to him that, I am a legitimate historian. I'm a legitimate published librarian, author, historian. May I borrow the microfilm? Because there's a very important article that mentions Arthur Stanzel by name as being connected with this UFO event. Exactly what we're talking about. He was one of the scientists that got off the bus that we talked about and was brought to this retrieval. So what they did, they actually lent him the microfilm. Libraries don't do that. They don't give out their original microfilm. They don't do that, but they did that for Harry Drew.
That's
And
crazy.
he included the microfilm in the book. It's there in the book.
Wow.
And that's the linchpin to this case is Arthur Stanzel. And if it wasn't for Harry Drew getting that microfilm to prove that it was there, we wouldn't have the case. But it's all in Harry's book.
This is crazy. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I never heard of these details before. So
Yep. That's
So
our job. That's our job.
it is. It's
That's what we do
phenomenal.
here.
So I always knew about this case. I just didn't know the details. I always heard there was a crash in Kingman. And now the story is just phenomenal. I had no idea that they crashed it into the dam.
Well,
How-
see, when you talk about the crown jewels of the
Yeah.
American government, I mean, this is really the crown jewels, right? The crash retrievals, above all else, represent the crown jewels because they're not going to give up the crown jewels. And when it comes to crash retrievals, you're not going to hear about it in your local newspaper. They're not going to publish specific details of the bodies, the propulsion system, the craft. You're not going to hear about it. So you can see why this whole UFO crash retrieval story, it has this built-in self-protection mechanism. Okay? Because when you talk about crash retrievals, it sounds so crazy, no one will ever believe it. So they don't need to put a cover story. It's crazy enough as it is. They don't need to develop all these disinformation cover stories and look over here and we want you to look over here and don't look here. The story is crazy enough on its own that they don't need to make up anything. So I think in one sense, it's easy for them to let this cover up go on for another 100 years, right?
Of course. Yep. And they've got the platform to do it. They control the media pretty much. Well, yeah, we don't know, but it seems that way. I was just going to ask you. Oh, yeah. Has anybody ever approached you about making a real movie about this, and not a documentary, like anything like that?
Well, no, I haven't had anyone that wanted to make a movie. No, I haven't.
It'd be
We
interesting.
certainly got enough illustrations to do it, though.
I know. Well, I guess it would be a documentary, but they could maybe break it into a series, maybe for Showtime or something like that.
Be great.
I don't know.
It would be great.
I can see it. These illustrations are phenomenal, and the detail is amazing. It looks like I feel like I'm there, looking at it.
That's what we want to do. We want to make it come alive. We want to make it real, for sure, for sure.
Now, I know what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Now, we see all these discs, these bubble-shaped craft back in the 40s, 50s, maybe even the 60s. But it seems like we've gotten away from those to tic-tacs and triangles more than anything. Is that because of where the technology has gone, or is it because they're just working on a different disc or a different UFO, you think? Because there has been a change.
There has been a change. I definitely believe that part of this phenomenon is man-made. I guess we won't go into that too much, but
Sure.
you can see how the configurations of the craft change with the decades, and that's just something that we could be looking at through the nuts and bolts aspect of this, I guess is the best way to say it. Like the configurations change from the 50s to the 60s, but still we get reports of disc-shaped craft, and that's kind of been prevalent throughout the entire history of this.
But the triangles seem to really be prevalent, and now the tic tac, of course.
Yep, definitely, definitely.
It is interesting because if this ever got out, I think what they're afraid of is it getting weaponized, from our adversaries if we tell them anything. But I don't know.
Well, I would agree with that too, right?
It's just like how you hear there's supposedly a 23-minute video out there that's supposed to be high def and clear. What would be so bad about showing us what a disc-shaped object looked like? Like, how is that going to violate our national security just by looking at a disc? It doesn't make sense to me. And they come up with the worst excuses.
Well, let me ask you, if you felt that the truth was so shocking or it was so disrupting, and you had the option to release or don't release, do you think that there would be a massive religious outcry, a massive panic?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you
Possibly.
think?
Yeah, possibly.
Kind of, but you would think that there would still be people that, they'd be okay with it. They can move on, but there would be a part of society that would, yes.
Well, I think they have to keep doing what they've been doing and giving it mainstream media. But that's here in the U.S. From what I understand, the rest of the world doesn't even hear about UFOs on the news or anything, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I hear that all the time. It's just you Americans and some Canadians. So what do we got next?
Okay, so we should talk about any discussion about crash retrievals has to mention Leonard Stringfield.
Okay.
Leonard Stringfield passed away 94. He's long since passed, but his legacy continues. And I want to talk about Lunken Airport.
Yeah.
This was the location of the 3-ring binders that MUFON acquired from Leonard Stringfield's dictation notes.
Wow.
So there are 78  3-ring binders at Lunken Airport that represents part of the original case material within the Stringfield collection. Now, allegedly, somewhere out, I don't know where it is. I don't think anybody does. There is allegedly 22 bank boxes of original correspondence between Leonard Stringfield and quote-unquote first-hand military witnesses. I'm talking about hardcore witnesses here that have not only seen the craft, but were involved in the retrieval operations. I'm talking about the 60-foot diameter disc-shaped craft retrieval operations.
Yep.
The debris, the bodies, the autopsy, all of it. They were first-hand military eyewitnesses, engineers, scientists, cosmonauts, astronauts, air traffic controller, pilots, first-hand witnesses. This is the best material within ufology. There's 22 bank boxes out there, and I can't find it, and no one can find it. Hopefully it wasn't thrown out. However, in 2012, MUFON acquired the original dictation notes from Leonard Stringfield's secretary. They were donated to MUFON. Cool. In 2013, I asked the governing body of MUFON if I could get access to that material, and they granted the request. So I'm showing you Lunken Airport. This is where these binders were located. So now I'm going to take you inside the room here. Here's the room. Here are the file cabinets. And if you look here, this is one of the 78 3-ring binders.
Oh, okay.
And, I've never had a phenomenon happen like this before in my whole life. I was there for 2 days, and I can tell you that hours passed like minutes, like I've never had happen before in my life. Here I'm reading these reports, firsthand reports of crash retrievals from people who were there, who saw the bodies, who retrieved the craft. It's just the most incredible information. It was all there. Anyway,
Cool,
We'll
yeah.
move on. Now, Leonard put a lot of this information. Now, this is available to the public here. UFO crash retrievals, the complete investigation status reports. He put all of his status reports together in this bound volume. It costs about $70, but you can read about these cases in this book. Not all of them within the 78 three-ring binders, but a lot of them are there. And it's just bombshell information. It's the best reading because it's the physical evidence we're looking for are in these reports if we
Cool.
could get to them.
Yeah.
Now, backstory. In 1978, Leonard Stringfield gave a lecture to the MUFON Symposium in Dayton. And this is 77 timeframe. And at that time, the term UFO crash retrieval was very new at the time. And Leonard stated that he had about 12 cases. Now, they weren't completely vetted. He wasn't able to do all of the research to completely verify this because that would have taken thousands of dollars. And he absolutely refused to release the names of his sources because that's the agreement he had. He would never release the names. And so when he gave this lecture, those two factors worked against him.
Oh.
He was crucified by the audience at the MUFON Symposium. I'm just telling it like it is.
Wow.
We know this because Richard Hall was there. He had to intervene because there was almost a riot going on.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
That's how this went down.
Because, oh my God.
Because, they were presented somewhat as fact, but not totally as fact because he couldn't verify this.
Oh, God,
I mean, how do you verify a crash retrieval that happened 30, 40 years ago? Bodies were recovered and, the craft was recovered. How do you verify that? He couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And he couldn't release the name. So in a way, you can kind of understand why the audience was mad. But, they shouldn't have grilled him so badly like they did. But anyway, that is how it went down. Yeah. Now, later on, as the account goes, Leonard left with his wife, Dell, on a vacation. And he kind of closed by stating, if you or anyone you know has any firsthand knowledge of UFO crash retrievals, bodies, firsthand witnesses to a retrieval operation, 8x10 glossy autopsies, contact me. Please contact me. I'm taking in these stories. Contact me. So they leave on vacation for 2 weeks. They come back after the 2 weeks. They go to their P.O. box. Leonard, he opens up the combination. He pulls that little door. He looks in his P.O. box. Guess what he finds?
Oh, no.
Crickets. There's nothing there.
No.
It's a bust. It's a bust. No one's there. I mean, he went through all this work, all this research. He took a 3rd-degree beating over all this UFO crash retrieval. Not even nothing. He looks a little closer, and there was a little postcard in there. He pulls out the postcard. He turns it over. He looks at it. It says, "See Postmaster." So they walk down to the postmaster, and he hands him this card. And the postmaster says, "I'll be back in a few minutes." So 10 minutes go by. 12 minutes go by. 15 minutes later, Leonard sees these two big burly guys with these big knapsacks over their shoulders. There's 5,000 letters that had come in from like all around the world of these first-hand crash retrieval stories. So I want to take you to just a couple of those stories right now. Okay,
there you go.
So this is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1963. This is a Navy captain who was later a Braniff Airlines pilot. And he stated that he had seen 2 dish-shaped craft at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. One was propped up on you could call it, wooden beam cradle. The other one was sitting on the hangar floor, but the larger one was 30 feet in diameter. He had seen this in a crack in a hangar as he was walking by at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So this is a Navy captain. Yeah. When he got back to HQ at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the general had known that he had seen these. Mm-hmm. So he asked the captain, the Navy captain, he says, "Captain, what did you see in that hangar?" And this guy turned around and said, "I didn't see anything." He said, "Right answer." And that was the end of that. That was the end of that.
That's the only answer.
Yeah, that's the only answer. So it's these kind of stories that are wrapped up within these 3-ring binders. Now let's go to another one here.
Yeah.
This is Great Lakes Naval Air Station, 1973. So there's a courier, okay? This is a courier, and he is told to deliver an important message. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but this Quonset-style building
Yeah.
is where we believe this actually took place. This is this Great Lake Naval Station, 1973. So two Seabees, who are like military police, they usher him down this long corridor. So you can see, you can kind of get this in your mind. He's walking down this corridor. He's got these big muscular guys on either side of him because they have to make sure that he delivers his letter, and that's it. So they go down this corridor, they make a left-hand turn, they go down another corridor. When they get to the end of this corridor, what do they see? They see a teardrop UFO that could be a USO. It's about 35 feet in length. It's 12 feet tall. It has a chrome polish exterior to it. It's propped off the floor on scaffolding. That's the third time we've heard this now.
Yep.
And he said that there was a blue coronal discharge going on the outer skin of the craft, and there was a lip that wrapped around this craft itself. So this could be actually a USO because it was a Navy facility.
Okay.
So I did a rendering of what this craft looked like. This is what the craft looked
Nice.
like. According to the eyewitness, it was this teardrop-shaped USO type vehicle. This is back in 1973. So if we add this to the other ones that we talked about up to 53, now we're at 73. Now we've got 5, 6, 7, 8 crash retrievals that they got. And remember, there are over 119 crash retrieval cases in this book that I put together based on the Stringfield collection of alleged retrievals. All I need is one to be true.
That's all.
Out of 119. So if you went to Vegas and you were betting, okay, and there were like 120 different pockets there, and you put a chip on 119, you're not going to lose.
That's right.
You're not going to lose.
Don't you
All I
find
need
it's
is one to be true.
But it's true. And we've always said that. I just need one. That's it.
Just
but
need one. That's all.
Why
you
so?
need.
It's just amazing that there's aliens. If you know all these stories are true, that they're crashing as much. I don't understand why. Is it because of that radar that you talked about earlier?
It could be. It could be. You know, we don't know the mind of what's going on or what they encounter. But in the case of the Kingman soft landing, Harry Drew had pinned it down to the high power experimental radar.
Yeah.
So something happened there. And what's interesting, we talked about newspaper clippings. You will never hear about a newspaper clipping about a crash retrieval, like all the specific details. But just a few days prior to, in Prescott, Arizona, there were sightings of disc-shaped craft that were put down in the newspaper. So within 24 hours of the actual Kingman retrieval, they did publish articles on UFOs and flying saucers being seen somewhat within the vicinity. So it's not completely unprecedented.
Right.
Yep, we can pin that down. That was verified. That was verified.
You know, we've been talking for almost 2 hours.
That's right.
I didn't even look at the clock until 5 minutes ago. But if you want, I mean, we could do one more. And
we
then
can do one more, sure.
And then we'll call it the night. Yeah.
Sure, we can
let's
do
do
one more.
that.
Yeah,
I
no
appreciate
problem.
this. This is unbelievable.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no problem. Remember, we got enough to go on to the next ice age here. But yeah, let me hit you with. Let me go ahead and hit you with my favorite Project Blue Book case. So this is March 23rd, 1966, Temple, Oklahoma, on the Temple, Oklahoma border here. Mm-hmm. So this is a electrical engineer who worked at Shepherd Air Force Base. It's 5:03 in the morning, March 23rd, 1966. He's driving to work. The sun is just coming up over the eastern horizon. He's driving down this road. It's still kind of dark out. He's got his headlights on. All of a sudden, boom, there's something parked in the middle of the road. It's blocking the road. What in God's name is this? So he puts on the brakes. He gets out of the car. He sees this, what could only be described as a bowling pin sitting on its side. The best way to describe it. Now, I've also heard reports that this thing looked like a perch or a fish. It was this bowling pin It looked
Yeah.
like a fish, you could call it. Now, he said it was about 75 feet long. It was about 8 feet tall. And let me break it down. And now this is, I want to remind everyone, this is
Yeah.
an official Project Blue Book case. This is not something I made up. You
Okay.
can actually go to the Blue Book files at the National Archives in Washington, D.C., and you can read about this for yourself. This is an actual U.S. government case.
Cool.
Okay, so on the forward section of this, it had a bubble transparent canopy that he said looked like it came off of a B-26 bomber from World War II. The whole thing was propped up on what looked like lunar landing gear legs. Now, on the front of this craft, there were 2 high-intensity beaming spotlights beaming forward. Below this craft, there were beaming spotlights coming down. Just aft of the forward part of the landing gear, there was an air stair door that was open. And then he said, here's where it gets interesting. He said that there was a man, not an alien, a man who was wearing 2-piece green military fatigue outfit with a baseball bat with a baseball cap with the bill turned up. He was shining a flashlight near the bottom of the craft by the air stair door. On the top of the craft itself, just aft of the air stair door, there was a stinger or spire that swept back. And it had a little ball at the end of it that was about 10 inches in diameter. It terminated at that ball. This spire looked like the trolley cars from San Francisco, California.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where it had that spire that makes connection with the overhead lines?
For sure, yeah.
So that that's exactly what this thing looked like.
I see that.
Okay?
It's cool. Yeah.
Yep. Now, aft of the air stair door where this guy was standing on the starboard side of the craft, that's the right-hand side, there was a 3.5-foot diameter porthole window that was lit from interior. It was divided into 4 equal pie segments. Aft of that, there was written very specifically in black letters, TL4768 was written on the side of the craft. Those letters were there. Now, as soon as this man with the green military fatigues, as soon as he saw he was being viewed by the primary eyewitness, he immediately climbed up this ladder. He slammed this door shut. Eddie Laxon is the primary eyewitness. He slammed this door shut. And then Eddie Laxon said that this craft basically made a high-pitched drilling noise, and that is borne out in at least 20 other separate cases. We always hear about this high-pitched drilling noise before these things take off. This thing rose off the ground, hovered there for about 20 seconds, and then he said took off like a spark on a grinding wheel and made no sonic boom. This is back in 1966. Whoa. So if you put this all together, now, this is very rough to see, but this is the original sketch by Eddie Laxon. You can see 75 feet across in length and 8 feet tall. And if you look at the proportions of these dimensions, if this front dimension is 8 feet in length, and then this overall length is 75, then this thing is grossly out of proportion. You know, you can't fault the guy. I mean, he just made this sketch up, and it wasn't really to scale. So I spent a whole day going through all his testimony, came up with this corrected sketch. Oh, cool. This is what the thing actually looks like. Now, he also said that whoever this man was with this military fatigue, on his shoulder were these naval ranking symbols that you sometimes see with these, these admirals have these chevrons. Yes, they were on there. And he said that if he could see him in town that afternoon, he'd recognize him. That's how close he was. That's how close he was. Here's the actual Project Blue Book index card, just to let you know I'm not making this up.
Wow.
This is page 1 of a 15-page report that goes with this whole thing in detail. So I pulled up the actual newspaper clipping here, and this is from the Daily Oklahoman, March 1st, 1971. They had a nice drawing of what this craft looked like. This like photo
Buck Rogers,
yep, this is Eddie Laxon. That's the man in question right there.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Object sighting now rude. Okay, so even he regretted talking about this. Now I should mention that there was a truck driver that also saw the craft as well. So we have independent confirmation from the electrical engineer and a truck driver. Cool. It wasn't just Eddie Laxon. So we won't read the whole thing here, but we'll just break it down what he said. Now, this is Eddie Laxon speaking here. What I saw was definitely not from space. The man was wearing fatigues and had a cap with the bill broken up like Air Force mechanics wear. Laxon said it had common English letters on it. Boom. I think if we look at all the things that are associated with this case, sure looks like one of ours.
I guess so.
Yep.
And I guess that maybe could be mistaken for even the gimbal or the tic tac in some way.
It could be. It could be.
It's hard to tell with those FLIR footage, but wow. So when the thing took off, did it just like take off at a hypersonic speed, like pew, and it was gone?
Boom, like right now.
Damn.
Yeah, and it made no sonic boom. So, yep.
How does something that has mass to it doesn't make a sonic boom? I mean, wouldn't you? Is it because it's a gravity displacement or something like that?
Well, if you have a high voltage electrical field, you can minimize your shock waves. You can set up a plasma ahead of the craft, and you can minimize your shock waves.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And it certainly looks like they've done it.
That is amazing, that story. And
anyone can read this. Anyone can read this at the National Archives, and you can read the entire report. I've shown you the index card. It's all there. It's all there.
Well, everything. Now, is there any place where anybody can look at your illustrations and everything? Do you have a YouTube channel?
I have a book that talks about, actually 2 books, but this one is called Dark Files, A Pictorial History of Lost, Forgotten, and Obscure UFO Encounters. And basically all of now I didn't put the crash retrievals in here. That's going to be a book itself, but all of the prior cases, and I've added 20 more. It's available now on Amazon as an ebook, but I've added 20 more cases, which I'm going to release as a published paperback at the MUFON Symposium in Colorado next year.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Now, do you know when that'll happen next year?
I think it's May of next year. Yeah.
All right. So about 6 months or so. But no YouTube channel, right?
No, I don't have a YouTube channel per se, but everything I've done is pretty much on YouTube. So yeah, it's there. It's there.
And this is, I pulled it up when you were talking. This is the Jackie Gleason house right here, right?
Jackie Gleason. You got it.
That's amazing. Yeah, there it is. This is it?
That's it.
Yeah, I can't blow it up anymore, but interesting. Yeah, I just wanted to show everybody because it was amazing. I just love hearing that story. Well, I can't thank you enough. This was absolutely a great experience for me, and I've seen people in the chat just having a good time, so I can't thank you enough.
No problem.
We're going to have you back on. I know there's so much you can go over, so we'll definitely do it again, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, say yes.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
We'll do it. I'm joking. But I also want to thank Third Phase of Moon for contacting you to make this happen. And you're also a panel member. The movie Above Top Secret will be out in February that you're in, and what you say is phenomenal. Everybody, I can't wait for that movie to come out.
Cool. Be great.
Yeah, with Greer and everybody else. It is a really excellent documentary you're a part of. But that's it. So thank you. And I'll put all the links in the description so everybody knows where to contact. Is there a contact thing there too for you?
Yeah, you can. If you want to include an email, that's fine too. That works. Mm-hmm.
The one that I have?
The one that you have, yeah.
All right, I'll put that there. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate this. And
no
like I said, we'll do it again. And well, next time it'll be a little warmer out. How is the weather in California right now?
60 degrees here.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad.
Have you ever lived there before?
Yeah, I lived here before.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thanks again. And have a great night. Happy holidays to you and yours.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it, Michael. Take care.
Bye. Yep.
Bye. I have a hard time with goodbyes. That was great. That went by so fast. I looked at the clock and I was thinking, oh my God, it's already an hour and 40 minutes we've been going. So there you have it, folks. Michael Schratt bringing his, expertise into UFO history, some aviation history, and those stories are fascinating because I always have a hard time with Roswell, and hearing what happened over there and the other story was phenomenal. But can't thank you guys enough for hanging out tonight. And I'm going to read the super chats that came through. I know we saw a few. That's kind of why I wanted to save the last 5 minutes here and pull that up real quick. I'd like to thank everybody who donates. And you could also support GoofOn through PayPal, the Cash App, and become a patron. So let's pull this up here and check out the super chats tonight. Let's see. Here we go. In oh my gosh. So we have Properly Paranoid with super chat of 10. One of the best historians in the field. Thank you very much. Easy E put in $5 in a row. Happy Friday. Bring the meatballs, ma. And next he said in the second one, we are in for a show tonight. Buckle up. And then Easy E, last one here. Good. Well, there is one more. All over that tight-fitting suit, that blue suit that the aliens wore. Amazing how that suit is, it's all over. I mean, I think that's the common color, too. You have to wear that bluish white. Louise Mitchell with $10 and a $2. Thank you very much. One of them is a super chat that says here. Oh, it's a super sticker. And the other one, you just took it and threw it at me, which I love. Exavi G310 with a $10 super chat. Good show, Rich. Michael is always full of good info. He sure is. There's Easy E's. Last one of $5 saying, a gush all over them alien bodies. Of course. Hey, Properly Paranoid with another $2. This is effing awesome. I agree. And Lord Ludicrous Plaid with the $2 super chat. This has been a really fun show. Keep it up. And let's check. There has been a Cash App. Let's take a look at that. See who that is. Whoa, the whole screen just jumped. I believe that's Abby. It says here. I'm not sure if that's Gigi Abby, but $5.55. Thank you very much for your support tonight, everybody. So that's it. There's a couple more that just popped up. Oh, those are the ones I just read. Properly Paranoid, $5. Thank you. Awesome job, Rich. And Xavi. Oh, wow. Xavi G 310 with another $5. Just taking it, rolling it up, spitballing. Whoo. $5. Thank you very much. I don't know what I'm talking about. So thank you guys for every piece of support. Moderators, super chatters, thank you very much. Show runs super smooth with you. I need you all. Thank you. And also, who else? The newcomers, the moderators. Wait, no, newcomers and veterans. Yeah, you guys. Thank you very much. If it wasn't for you, why even do it? You know? We're trying to reach the masses. When we get to 1 million subs, we'll have a party. And speaking of parties, tomorrow will be the 3-year anniversary of GoofOn Show. So that's at Saturday in the UK at 4 p.m. Eastern. So don't forget that tomorrow. I'm Rich Giordano for GoofOn. I want to thank everybody one more time. We'll be back tomorrow, Saturday in the UK, where GoofOn is Truthology for ufology. I feel like I'm going to cry. I swear. All right. Good night. Have a good weekend. See ya.
There's a weird thing. It's rotating. What was in the skies over Jerusalem, and why did it sound like treasured sites in Christianity?
There's a